So if I start off just by way of introduction, and what I'm going to try and do is I've got my notes here to try and make sure I cover all of the issues. But this is more or less what I'm going to give you by way of a handout at the end. But I'm going to refer to it just to make sure that I kind of stay on track, because there's a lot of things that I do want to say, and I don't want to be in a position where I don't want to be in a single I forgot to say this, and I forgot to do that. So I'm going to try and use this. First of all, by way of background, if we start at the very beginning of this matter, I think for those who have been involved in this matter for a number of years, you may remember that the issue really started with the listing of a company called Specialized Outsourcing. And that company, Specialized Outsourcing, was immensely successful in terms of a young company listed in the JSE. That company listed at a share price of £1.20. It gave a market capitalization of about 50 million rand at the time of listing. In the end of October 1997. And within about a year, the market capitalization of that company went up to 3.5 billion rand. And it's through the sale of the proceeds of my investments in that company that the initial interest from SARS came in. Previously, I was going to be okay in business, but I really wasn't on any great actually until such time as this massive amount of money came had made billions, and the numbers were all floating around. And that got SARS' attention at that point in time. Now, if you look at SARS, the position that I believe that SARS has put across, SARS has put across the position that you've got this guy, Dave King, came to South Africa with money, which is true, made a lot of money, and this man will do anything, legal or otherwise, to avoid paying tax. And I think that's a fair assessment of the way I read the view of me that's put before the courts, and the view of me as I read it from the press. So here's a guy saying he's made all this money, doesn't want to pay any tax whatsoever. He hides his assets, he dissipates assets, he hides airplanes, he doesn't want to speak to the receiver, completely non-profitable. He's made his money, and he doesn't want to pay a cent of tax. So I want to start off with that. And the first thing I want to address there is that I think SARS have quite successfully portrayed the fact that I was very negligent in terms of not only not paying tax, but in not working with the commissioner to try and allow him to be in a position where he could properly assess him for tax. And I went out of my way to ensure that the state had no knowledge whatsoever of my involvement in overseas structures, overseas trusts, and the vehicles that actually ended up with the cash offshore. So really the view of King was a fairly simple one. Doesn't want to pay tax. He's going out of his way to hide and conceal his tax affairs to make sure that he doesn't pay a cent in this country. In order to validate that and look at the reality of the situation in terms of me hiding the wealth from the state, I want to just take you through some documentation. Now, at the time of the listing of Specialized Outsourcing, I think, to repeat, there is no argument by any party at this point in time that the amounts that are being taxed were not in fact generated from the wealth created through the listing of Specialized Outsourcing. If you go back to the listing of Specialized Outsourcing itself, and I'm going to quote you from some documentation there. The company, as I say, was listed in 1997. It's a feature of any listing in South Africa. You have to issue a prospectus. In terms of the prospectus, there's a lot of legal requirements that anyone has to comply with. And included in that requirement is full disclosure of directors' interests, full disclosure of shares and trusts, and very importantly for present purposes, also full disclosure to the Reserve Bank. Because every single prospectus is obliged to be submitted to the Reserve Bank, and the Reserve Bank has to approve it. And you would imagine that this is even more the case when you've got a situation where you're listing a company that is in fact controlled by an offshore entity. You would imagine under these circumstances the Reserve Bank would be extremely keen to understand what's happening, because now you've got a foreign controlled company, because at that point in time, my family trusts owned a little over 70% of the company unlisted. So what I'm doing is I'm going back to the situation prior to the money being made. I think that's quite important. So I want to talk about the fact that I'm guilty of this massive non-disclosure, and I tried to make sure that the state would have no access to the knowledge that I was even involved in the trusts. And I'm just going to quote a couple of things to you from here. During September 1997, which is the month before the listing, I agreed as the CEO of the company, and this is a legal obligation that I had, as had the other directors. You have Nick Davis, who's now the head honcho at Strata. You have Barry Adams, ex-senior partner at Arthur Anderson at the time, Clive Cohen, very senior SIL, Willem Top, the treasury manager at Eskom. We're all sitting on the board of this company, and we all have obligations to sign off on the prospectus. And it's a very, very serious thing if you lie and sign off on the prospectus. That's a serious criminal charge. I was required in September 1997 to agree with the sponsoring broker, which was BOE NatWest at the time, that the prospectus was accurate, and I signed off on it. What was included in the prospectus? Now, I'm going to make comments about someone who's done everything that he possibly can to conceal his involvement in this company from the state. So I'm one of those chaps that said, I've got these trusts and no one will know anything about them. I'm going to do everything it takes. I'm going to lie, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. So what did I do? Before the money was made, what I signed off on, page 9 of the prospectus. Now this is a public document. It's available to SARS, and it's formally submitted to the Reserve Bank for approval. It's not something to get, they have to approve it. It's a positive approval. On page 9 of the prospectus, and again I repeat, I'm quoting from public documents. It says page 9, and I'm quoting, referring to me as being the CEO of the company, and in my role it says, Dave is responsible for the strategic positioning, direction, and growth of the company. On page 10 of the prospectus, the following is stated under the heading Interest of Directors. This is my concealment of my interest. It says, Mr. D.C. King, Director of Specialized Outsourcing and the listing, is a beneficiary of the Caledonia Trust, which has a controlling interest in Ben Nevis Holdings Limited, the controlling shareholder of Specialized Outsourcing. So that's how I concealed it. I concealed it by including it in the agreement. Then move on to page 16 of the prospectus. 6.4, controlling shareholder, a legal requirement. The following is stated. Ben Nevis Holdings Limited, a Guernsey domiciled investment company, has, pursuant to the placing, an effective interest in Specialized Outsourcing of approximately 71.1% control of the issued share capital. Mr. D.C. King, Director of Specialized Outsourcing and the listing, is a beneficiary of the Caledonia Trust.